Yo, everybody. Welcome back to Trucker Joe's Hideout. Today we gonna be covering a serial killer out of Indiana. Hope you enjoy. Before we get started, if you ain't done so already, give me a follow and let's get into it.
10,000 human remains have been found on a serial killer's property, and they have now identified one of the victims. Herbert is considered one of Indiana's most notorious serial killers. His crime spree began over 30 years ago. Herbert, the owner of Fox Hollow Farms, is said to have lured men to his Westfield home in the mid-80s through the mid-90s. This was before disposing of their bodies in his backyard. In 1996, Herbert was found out after they found 10,000 bone fragments on his property. An investigation was opened, and Herbert took his own life in Canada shortly after. Though it has been over 20 years since the discovery was made, the coroner's office is still continuing to work through and identify all of his victims. Authorities say they have now identified one of the victims found in 1996. He has now been identified as Manuel Resendez, and he has gone missing over 30 years ago in August of 1993. They said that the identification was possible through the work of many forensic specialists collaborating. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. I'll keep.
Yeah, over 30 years. This is a huge crime. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out. But let's continue with this video.
As though this is not going to be too gruesome or anything like that, this story is very creepy. Just wanted to throw that out there before we continue, so let's get going. Herb Baumeister was born in 1947 in Indiana. People who remember him growing up remember him playing with dead animals. When he was a teen, he was officially diagnosed with schizophrenia, but never received any psychiatric care. In the late 1980s to the early 1990s, Indiana police were starting to investigate the disappearances of gay men from bars. What they noticed is that all these men that were disappearing all fit the same physical description. What was happening was Herb was going to these bars and luring gay men back to his place. He would go and be like, "Oh my god, we're having an after party at my place, pool party, I have a pool house, gotta come." And so basically these gay men were like, "Yeah, let's do this." So they'd go back to his place, and Herb was really smart. He set up mannequins all around his pool house to make it look like there's a whole bunch of people there having a party. But there was no party. So as soon as they get into the pool house, Herb would shut the door, strangle the gay men, and then dump them in the woods behind his house. Herb Baumeister's son, Eric.
Boy, that takes a sick and twisted mind to set up mannequins to look like you got a people at a pool party. Damn, that's that takes a sick mind, ain't no doubt.
Suicide note, he blamed his failing marriage and business for being the reason he committed suicide. Police estimate that he killed between 10 to 20 gay men. Make sure to like and follow for more creepy stories.
There have been
That goes to show you. You never know who's going to turn out to be a psychopath. This guy was a successful businessman over there. That just blows my mind. Man had everything. And you never know who's out there in this world. Y'all be careful out there.
Double life, he was married and even had multiple children. But unbeknownst to his wife, he was secretly gay. And between the early and mid 90s, it's suspected that he took the life of dozens and dozens of men. And on the left here are some of the victims. Now, Herb would meet up with a lot of these men at gay bars and then would bring them back to his house. And most of the activities would take place at his indoor pool, where he would either subdue the guys, he would give them alcohol or some sort of substance. But it gets even weirder. Apparently, he had his entire pool area filled with mannequins. And once he was able to get the guys into a vulnerable position, he would then proceed to strangle them. But because one of his victims did escape, we now know the story of Herb Baumeister. Now, when the news broke out about what he was doing, he took it as an opportunity to immediately run away to Canada. And that's where he proceeded to take his life. And he never offered any sort of explanation as to why he did this or even admitted any guilt. But in recent developments, police have now discovered over 10,000 bone fragments on his property. And this, although it is a very big discovery, it was not a huge surprise. Authorities always believed.
Imagine that. 10,000 bone fragments. That's a lot of bodies. Yeah, we've got a lot of bone structure and stuff in everybody's body. But 10,000 pieces, that's that's a lot of bodies. Ain't no doubt.
His name was Manuel Reséndez, and he was reported as missing in 1993. The story is still developing, and we're likely going to find out more names of his victims. But if you want a full deep dive on Herb Baumeister and Fox Hollow Farm, I did a very long video on YouTube a while back. The link is in my bio if you guys want to go watch it.
In late 1994, Herb's middle child, 13-year-old Eric, finds human bones, including a fucking skull, in the backyard of his house, right? Fox Hollow Farm. Leads his mom, Julie, to a cluster of bones under some fallen leaves. Then Julie asks Herb what the hell is going on. She thought they should call the police, but he talks her out of it. He reassures his family the bones are just bones from a med school cadaver, once owned by my daddy.
A med school cadaver? Boy, that's a likely story.
Herb, what are these bones doing here? Oh, those bones? Those are bones from my dad's cadavers from med school that he gave them to me, and I forgot to mention it. Why are they just piled up under a tree in our yard? Well, let me answer your question with another question. Have you ever wondered what human urine tastes like? Ever pondered that? I bet it's sour.
No, I can't say that I've ever wondered what human urine tastes like. How about y'all?
Another victim of Indiana serial killer Herb Baumeister has been positively identified. Today, the Hamilton County, Indiana Coroner's Office identified the remains of Roger Goodlett as one of the victims discovered on Fox Hollow Farm in Westfield more than 30 years ago. Goodlett was reported missing from Indianapolis in 1994. He was long suspected as one of the victims of Baumeister. In 96, dental records did match with remains, but through the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification, his remains were confirmed through advanced forensic and DNA analysis, at least as of today. If you're not familiar with Herb Baumeister, he was a businessman who authorities believe.
Can you imagine how long it would take for forensic scientists to identify over 10,000 body parts? That is just absolutely ridiculous.
His estranged wife gave permission to authorities to search the 18-acre estate in Westfield. Over 10,000 charred and crushed human bones were found on the farm. 10 men have been identified positively, but authorities believe there could be as many as 25 victims. They continue to use modern DNA technology to try to identify victims. Baumeister was the founder of the Save-A-Lot thrift store. When he found out that authorities knew his alias was Brian Smart.
Well, that's surprising. I used to deliver a lot. Pick up and deliver a lot to Save-A-Lots up there in Kentucky and in a few other states. So so now we're finding out who this guy is.
Killer's property, and they have now identified one of the victims. Herbert is considered one of Indiana's most notorious serial killers. His crime spree began over 30 years ago. Herbert, the owner of Fox Hollow Farms, is said to have lured men to his Westfield home in the mid-80s through the mid-90s. This was before disposing of their bodies in his backyard. In 1996, Herbert was found out after they found 10,000 bone fragments on his property. An investigation was opened and Herbert took his own life in Canada shortly after. Though it has been over 20 years since the discovery was made, the coroner's office is still continuing to work through and identify all of his victims. Authorities say they have now identified one of the victims found in 1996. He has now been identified as Manuel Resendez, and he has gone missing over 30 years ago in August of 1993. They said that the identification was possible through the work of many forensic specialists collaborating. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
My theory on it is the reason why he was killing these gay fellers was to keep his secret so it would never get out, because it said in earlier that he was a closet gay fella. And if that's the case, that's just plumb sick.
History. Herbert Herb Baumeister, who was a successful businessman in the 1990s, had the perfect life, or so it seemed. He owned and lived on what is known as Fox Hollow Farms, an 18-acre property with one of the most beautiful homes in the state of Indiana. But little did people know that he was luring young men, particularly gay men, to this place to end their life. It's been confirmed that there was at least 11 men that perished on this property, but people believe that there was many, many more.
I believe there's many, many more, because they're talking about 10,000 bone fragments. We don't know if when they're saying fragments, we don't know if that's full bones or pieces of bone that's been chewed up. But 10,000 pieces, that's more than 11 individuals, in my personal opinion. Tell me what y'all think in the comments.
When a new couple purchased this property, they thought they had found the home of their dreams. Little did they know it was actually a nightmare. Herb's reign of terror continued because many of his victims, and possibly even Herb himself, still remain here on this property. Especially in the woods surrounding the home where he would dispose of the bodies, people have seen many apparitions, particularly a young man in a red shirt that wanders the property. Poltergeist runs rampant. It's everywhere inside and outside of the house. Objects will move on their own. You can hear disembodied voices and full-bodied apparitions.
That don't surprise me. For that much death, there's got to be some remnants left behind. So that don't surprise me that that place is haunted. I wouldn't want to live there.
Groups, and they have picked up on the alleged spirits of his victims and Herb himself. To this day, Fox Hollow Farms remains one of the most infamous haunted locations, from the red shirt apparition in the forest to the full body apparition that people have seen what looks like a drowning person in the pool. This place is a thing of nightmares. If you have any paranormal evidence or story you'd like to share, my email is listed in my bio. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. God bless.
Yeah, with that much tragedy, like I said, there has to be, some activity left behind. Because, any place that's had a lot of tragedy, there's usually a lot of, spiritual activity going on. And so let me know in the comments, would you live at that place right now? Nope, not me. I don't tempt faith on nothing.
Woods. It's believed that Baumeister killed at least 25 men, but it could be so many more. Because so many of the remains were burned and fragmented, many victims have still never been identified. Just days after the discovery, Baumeister died by suicide, taking countless answers with him. The original docuseries, The Fox Hollow Murders: Playground of a Serial Killer, followed investigators as they reopened the case in 2022. After that docuseries was released, it generated around 500 new tips, and they just released a follow-up documentary. Return to Fox Hollow: New Victims, Darker Secrets introduces new witnesses, new evidence, and revisits one of the biggest questions surrounding this case. Could one person really have carried out crimes of this scale alone? Both The Fox Hollow Murders and Return to Fox Hollow are streaming now on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. Go check them out and let me know what you guys think of this case in the comments.
If you hang out in downtown Indianapolis, you might want to stick around to hear this. A man connected to the Fox Hollow Farm case has been spotted again, and apparently he's been seen at downtown Ollie's as well as Greg's place. His name, Mark Goodyear. And if you're like me and you watched the Hulu documentary about Herb Baumeister, then you already know. Goodyear has publicly claimed for years to be the only survivor of Herb Baumeister. And if you don't know that story, Herb was a man who targeted people in the LGBTQIA+ community, stalking the nightlife scene in the late 80s and early 90s, and he would take them back to his home, Fox Hollow Farm, and I think you can fill in the blank. But anyway, this Goodyear character, his identity stayed under wraps for years. But clearly, since that documentary aired, he's been back in the exact same public places tied to that history. And according to multiple reports, his recent conversations with some of the patrons of these places have been unsettling, to say the least.
You don't think the reason why he survived is that he was an accomplice? He was one that was actually helping him lure these people in, do you? That would make a lot of sense to me, because, the only lone survivor, that's suspect for sure.
Stay aware, trust your gut, and let's look out for one another. And while we're on the subject, what are your thoughts on the Fox Hollow Farm case? I have a few theories of my own, but that's a story for another day. Don't ghost me, boo. Also, definitely make sure that we share this post and get the word out. I'm not saying he's up to no good, but let's just be on the safe side.
Mark Goodyear? Yeah. Let me ask you. What do you think? Am I the evil culprit, the accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience...
Oh, yeah. Now I'm a firm believer that he's an accomplice. Look at that crazy joker. Lord have mercy. Yeah, I wouldn't want to meet him on the street.
So you guys remember this guy from that documentary about the Fox Hollow murders? You know, one of the most suspicious individuals I've ever laid eyes on. And the whole Herb Baumeister story, serial killer, he ended up taking himself out before he was ever convicted of a single crime, but they found over 10,000 bone fragments at this guy's property. Yeah, they just made a follow-up called Return to Fox Hollow, and there's some really interesting stuff in this. For one, they get into a whole other suspect aside from Herb Baumeister and Mark Goodyear, a third person that seems very much involved in this. He very much fits the Herb Baumeister profile. Married guy, the secret life, had connections, was the last person to see a few of the victims that were found. The more and more they keep uncovering about this case, it seems like it absolutely was some kind of a ring or something. Herb Baumeister, he just went down for it. They didn't investigate it for years and years. Now there's all this renewed effort. The coroner, who's been really pushing to get these people identified, he's done an absolutely phenomenal job in this case, and talking about the mistakes that law enforcement made over the years. And there's a really jarring part towards the end of this where these two people in law enforcement are talking about this case as it was unfolding after they got Herb. What they say to each other, it's like, oh, they obviously shut this down. They also keep identifying people that were found at that property, and they get into a few of those new victims here. I don't know, man. It just, at the end of the day, it seems like there was many more people involved than just one person, and the secrets could still all lie with Mark Goodyear. But yeah, you should really check this out. I saw it on Disney Plus. It's on Hulu.
I'd like to know how the audience views me.
Here come.
This guy's name, Mark Goodyear, continuously comes up. It's just too much to ignore.
Well, there you have it, folks. One of the most disturbing serial killers I've ever encountered. Tell me what y'all think in the comments, and if you like this kind of stuff, let me know what serial killer you want me to cover next, and I'll see if I can't dig up some information on it. But anyway, like I said, thanks for watching. And if you don't care before you leave, make sure you give me a like, follow, and share. I'm Trucker Joe. We'll catch you on the next one.